Hey guys, how's it going? It's me, Flat Earth Sage. Just wanted to do a little video. Where I'm at over here in Phoenix, it's most of the U.S. is starting to get cooler, but fortunately here in Arizona, it's the temperatures are cooling if they are cooling at a snail's pace. So because of that, usually these high temperatures, most plants are just trying to survive. Um, Now I've had now because of that, I haven't really had too much to harvest lately. So instead of worrying about, you know, what I haven't gotten to harvest or what hasn't worked for me, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the plants that have worked for me in the past. Um maybe I might mention one or two of them, and you know, it might be the perfect time to start growing some of those plants wherever you're at. Um, so I'm just going to basically talk about maybe my top five favorite plants. Um, the first plant is the first plant that I ever tried growing, and it is the purple basil. Um, I think Thai basil and purple basil, I think they're the same thing. I could be wrong. But from the garden center is listed as purple basil, and that was my first plant I ever grew, and I didn't really know a whole lot about gardening at all. Um, so I basically we had a little little section that I guess used to be a garden bed, little small fenced off area, and that's where I decided to go ahead and plant my purple basil. And because I was so new to gardening, I didn't know anything about soil structure or anything like that. So essentially, I was planting these purple basils in what was mostly pure clay. I know it was pure clay because the water would take forever to permeate through the surface. Um, and it was like the grayer kind of color to it. Um, so my first plant I ever planted was planted in clay soil, and um, the first, believe it or not, that first plant I planted, I was thinking wasn't even going to do well. But to my surprise, it actually did quite well and spread quite prolifically throughout that section. And so that's my first pick. Basil is something that's super easy to grow, um, especially if you did what I did and got it as a start from the nursery and planted it. Um, and I don't know about all varieties of basil, but I know the purple variety that I've grown. I know it can handle some quite a bit of clay soil and still thrive and survive. Um, and what you can do too is you can just do a cut and come again style with basil, and it'll just keep regrowing. Now you're not going to get a lot of flushes. You're not going to be able to do that too many times. You'll probably be able to do it two or three times before the plant starts petering down to the point where you're going to have to replace it. Um, but that's my first one right there. The second one is peppers. Any kind of pepper. Um, if you if you're a little bit impatient, you might try a variety of pepper that's a lot smaller, like a shishito or maybe a Tabasco, um, or even a Serrano. That's a good option too. The thing about peppers that I've noticed is peppers don't need a whole lot. Um, they even survive in some poor quality soil, provided you're watering it enough. And depending on the variety, of course. And another thing I love about peppers, I used to be known as the pepper guy back in Virginia. Because I loved growing different pepper varieties. And the thing about these pepper varieties is that they will produce a ton. And I'm talking a ton of peppers. And in fact, the one that I had, that I have growing in my backyard, just stopped producing peppers maybe about a month or two ago. But even if I picked all the peppers, even if it was chock full of peppers on the plant and I picked all the peppers, it's like and before you know it, I go back out to the garden and there's just as much peppers on the plant. So this thing will keep producing as long as you keep picking them. Make sure you're actively picking all your peppers off the plant. And you'll be getting that continuous amount of flushes till eventually the environmental conditions get too extreme for the plant. And at that time, it'll stop producing peppers and go into survival mode. And if it's lost a good amount of usually at that time, it's focusing on leaf growth, and which is what my pepper is doing right now. It's actually looks like it's almost completely regrown all of its leaves. All the leaves pretty much died off it, and I gave it a little bit of TLC, and now it's regrown all its foliage. It's still trying to produce flowers and fruit, surprisingly, but because the temperatures are too high, it's just dropping its flowers right now. So that's my second favorite one, is peppers, for sure. Now, my third favorite one is probably a lot of gardeners' favorite as well, is strawberries. Strawberries, if you give them the right conditions and you give it all the stuff that you need, and you're growing at least, I would say anywhere from 5 to 10 strawberry plants, you're going to be getting a pretty decent harvest of strawberries. Depending on how many people are going to eat the berries. And that's a super easy one to grow. And if you do decide to grow it, I would highly suggest bare root. Purchasing it from bare root. It is possible to start them from seed, but from what I understand of starting strawberries from seed, it can be a little tedious. And I could be wrong about this because I've never tried to start strawberries from seed. But from my understanding, it needs to be cold stratified, which means you have to trick the seeds into thinking that it's winter, basically. And you do that for like a month or two. You pop it in the fridge or something, or a freezer for about a month or two. And then from what I understand, that would be ready to be planted. While I'm on the subject of stratification, there's a lot of different ways of stratifying a seed. And I didn't even know. You could soak the seed. You could puncture a hole in the seed. And from what I understand, there's even some that need to be heat stratified. And there's a couple different other methods, I'm sure, out there as well. So definitely would suggest purchasing it bare root. And my third one that I love growing, that there's probably a lot of people in the U.S. that are getting ready to start now if they haven't already, and that's peas. Not peas, beans. Beans are one of my favorite things to grow. Um, I've only recently been growing them in the past 2 or 3 years, and I actually grew them this year and got it from a mystery seed pack from one of my, not a sponsor, but from one of my favorite seed companies, migardener.com. And they sell like little mystery seed packs, and I planted them, and it was actually snap peas or snap beans or whatever you want to call them, and those things produced a ton. And they were producing for quite a while too. I was getting so many of them. I was like, "Oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do with all these?" So as long as your temperatures aren't too hot, because there are shallow rooted plants. Um, so number one, they don't like the heat. Number two, they need to be watered quite frequently. And if you avoid the heat with it, you water it quite frequently, you're on the road to a successful harvest for peas and beans. Um, and then my next one that I would suggest growing, some people, depending on where you live, can start. Um, well, now it might be a little too late for this for most people in the U.S., but it's okra. And okra, especially if you're someone who lives in the South and you got that you got that humid, really hot summer climates and stuff, okra will survive incredibly well. I know when I was living back in Virginia, uh, I had an okra I bought as a start and planted in my raised bed, and that thing produced a ton of pods. Um, Actually, I wish I would have gotten to the pods a little bit sooner. You want to harvest them when they're shorter. I made the mistake of waiting till they were longer, and they didn't quite taste as good. Um, but as long as you pick them early, they're a great choice. Um, and the next one that I like growing as well um, is I've only grown this 1 year, um, and that is watermelon, and specifically sugar baby watermelon. Now, I like growing the sugar baby watermelon because they're smaller, they're more personal melons, which means that they're not nearly going to take as long as something like the giant garden monster, or like the garden monster or the crimson sweet. They're going to be ready a lot quicker. And I remember I only got one, or actually, I only got two personal melons off one plant. And one of them, of course, I ate to myself, and I sold the other one to my friend's brother. And he just grabbed himself, he just cut it in half, or cut the top of it off, grabbed himself a spoon, and just went to town on that watermelon. And I'm telling you, he demolished that thing. So that one must have been pretty good, I'm guessing. So that's another one that I had lots of success with as well. Um, Even stuff like lettuce, romaine lettuce specifically. Specifically, I haven't grown any here in Arizona, but back in Virginia, um, I had grown the romaine, and my mom had made the mistake of putting Miracle Grow on the lettuce, and that thing turned into a fucking tower. Like it was like I wasn't expecting that plant to get quite as tall as it did. and it was really weird, but still made for some pretty good romaine lettuce. Um, and The last one that I've had or actually two more. Um, the next one that I've had good luck with in the past is tomatoes, specifically indeterminate variety of tomatoes, which, for those of you who know or don't know, indeterminate variety of a tomato is a tomato that'll keep growing, that doesn't have a maturity date, will actually just keep growing until it's either killed off by weather or pest or disease. And if conditions are perfectly right, it'll just keep growing. It'll just keep growing. Um, and these types of tomatoes usually produce a ton of tomatoes. Um, if you single stem your tomatoes and bottom prune them like I do, um, I've gotten, golly, off one plant, I probably picked like 20 at a time. And that one specific variety that did really well for me, that I really enjoyed, was the San Marizanos. And I, I can't remember if the San Marizano that I had was San Marizano inspired or was the actual San Marizano. Because I heard that the actual San Marizano is illegal. Um, but when I got it from the store, I'm pretty sure it just said San Marizano. Um, so that variety produced really well for me. And and that, that's another one that's not too hard to grow, as long as you. Oh yeah, when you single stem, you have to make sure that you're trellising it up. Um, and and you keep trellising it up, letting it grow up and grow tall and stuff. And you want to try to minimize as much side growth as possible from the plant. And you do that, and you plant it in pure compost. Maybe add some slight soil acidifier to it, because tomatoes like a slightly more acidic kind of soil. You're going to be set up for success. And if you try growing the San Marizano and you do all that, you're going to have a bunch of fruit, and you're going to be a very happy gardener. But of course, there is like literally thousands of different varieties of tomato. I just would encourage that you try at least one, because it is really rewarding growing tomatoes. I'll tell you what, man. I don't, to be honest, I'm not even a fan of tomatoes. I don't even really care for their taste or flavor that much, but I love growing them, and I love giving them away to friends and family. So that is so that's another one that I've had success with in the past. And the last and final one that I have, this one's probably the one that I've had the most success out of everything. And that is the cucumber. Cucumbers are such an easy crop to grow. I'm not even joking on that. And to say that to say that cucumbers are productive is an understatement. Like, this thing might even cucumbers might even produce too much. I've harvested at one time from one plant probably about 10 plus cucumbers at a time. And And then I'll come back the next time for the next flush, and then I'll see all these super nasty looking bright yellow cucumbers I didn't see before. So you just want to, as long as you're you know going through your plant and looking very carefully, making sure to pick all the ripe ones, um, all the ones that are ready, I should say. Your plant is going to be very productive, very healthy, and very happy. And one of the things, you can do whatever you want with your cucumbers, but one of the things that I like to do when I was growing my cucumbers is I like to chop them up and dice them up. And I get like a gallon jug of distilled water, and I'll mix I'll dice them up, maybe pour a little bit of the water out, tiny bit, just enough for me to be able to add the diced up cucumber, and I'll shake it up, mix it up really good, and I'll let it sit in the fridge for about 24 hours. And that's going to give you a really good, really refreshing cucumber water that also actually works really well for a face scrub, believe it or not. Cucumbers actually have exfoliating properties for the skin. I'm sure there's a lot of people that know that. And when I made my cucumber water, my roommate, before he tried the cucumber water, he was like breaking out really badly in his face, and he started drinking cucumber water and started applying it to his face, and in a really short, and I don't know, in about a week or two, almost all his acne had pretty much cleared up. It was unreal. So that's the thing that I like to do with cucumbers. Of course, I like to cut them up, dice them up, and add some salt and eat them too. It's another way I like enjoying them. But I really like making it into a cucumber water. If you guys have not tried to make an infused cucumber water, highly, highly suggest it. And so that's pretty much it. I mean, those are pretty much those are 6 or 7 of my favorite plants that I enjoy growing and that have produced the best for me. I think that as gardeners, when things aren't going so well in our garden, the only thing we can do is be grateful and reflect on the times in the past, all the bountiful harvest we had in the past, and just appreciate, the stuff we have grown rather than the stuff that we can't grow. So basically, that's the message I want to leave with all the gardeners is gardening is all about positivity. If you go into gardening with a negative attitude, it's going to be bad for you. You're going to have a bad season. So, instead of like being like, woe is me, this won't work, that won't work, the way I picture it is like, yeah, this won't work, this is struggling, and I don't know what's going on, but I remember all the times I grew all these things in the past that did really well, and that kind of keeps your confidence level up as a gardener, just reflecting on all the good times in the past you had on your garden. And instead of, wanting to just throw in the towel, because I know there's a lot of gardeners out there, especially here in Arizona, that have wanted to throw in the towel. And the one thing that, like I said, the one thing that's kept me from throwing in the towel is my love for gardening and my desire to become a better gardener. In fact, I've made my garden my personal sanctuary or temple. I don't get angry, I don't get angry, I don't yell, pretty much I've made that a zero negativity zone. And, you know, even though I haven't quite had the harvest that I was hoping for this year, half of it is my fault because I did start a little bit late. Um, and, but even though that's the case, I'm not really worried. I know eventually temperatures are going to start to cool down, and which means I'm probably going to have a boom of growth in my garden at that point. Um, so yeah, all the gardeners out there, just if you guys are having a rough time or a rough season, or you had a rough season, just keep your head up and just know that that's just an opportunity to learn and grow and become a better gardener in the future. And that's the thing, with no matter what you want to do in life, it's always going to come with its set of obstacles and challenges. But the thing that can get you through that is your love for that particular subject. And I know that my love for gardening, outweighs any issue that I'm dealing with the garden. In fact, like when I notice something's not working right, I get excited because I'm like, oh, okay, so this isn't working. So let me see what could be the reason why this isn't working. How could I remedy or fix this? And that's helped me out a lot with my confidence as a gardener. And I think more gardeners should start thinking in that way. I think if you love gardening enough, you're not going to let those hard times get to you that much. And just whatever you do, just make sure, just realize that, God has blessed y'all with bountiful harvest in the past. And you can't just let one season just ruin your love for one bad season ruin your love for gardening. So anyway, I just wanted to share this video. It's 27 minutes. Damn. Longer than I thought. And hopefully, this will start getting some gardeners out there, start thinking, and start being more appreciative of the things they do have, or the blessings they've had in the past, rather than blessings that have yet to come. But anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and log off here. Hope y'all are doing well. Peace and love, guys.